In this video, I will showcase a basic workflow on how to shoot, edit, and make one small virtual tour of an outside area, that of Psiloritis geopark, starting from its peak at 24.56 meters. The basic idea is to build a small introductory virtual tour that will guide the users to other Psiloritis geopark tours. I am planning to further develop this small tour, so if you visit it in the future, it will differ a bit from what you see in the video. The link of the tour is located in the video description and in a tab that will pop now at the top right of your screen. However, first let's see what a virtual tour is in this case. It is actually a website that at the core there are photographic spherical panoramas, each taken from a specific location, that are connected to other panoramas. By transitioning from panorama to panorama, the user can change the location from where he observes the surroundings. If the panorama is taken from the ground, usually 1.5 meters above the ground, it is like he observes the area from the ground. In case it is taken from a drone, then he can observe more, since it will be like he's flying. These panoramas can include other elements like images, videos, texts, that can supply information in an interactive way, or they are just to improve the virtual tour by adding immersion elements that improve the navigation experience. These spherical photographic panoramas are products of a number of different photos from the same location that are stitched together to form an equirectangular projected photo. These photos, in the context of the tour, are also called scenes or spheres, and are the observational points from which the users inspect the surroundings by using their mouse or their fingers to change their field of view. The panoramas for this virtual tour will only be 3 high-resolution aerial ones from the highest peaks of Psiloritis, from where the majority of the areas are visible and can have at least one entry point to these other tours. I want the panoramas to be at max resolution in order to give the ability to zoom in. I shoot my panoramas with the DJI Mavic Pro 2 with the DJI Go 4 app from an Android phone that is set to shoot DNG RAW files. From the app, there is a dedicated mode for spherical panoramas that will take care of the photo shooting as long as you fly the drone to the acquisition position. The errors from parallax effects and slight drone movements are insignificant most of the time, especially when the flight altitude is above 50 meters or so, since there are not many objects near the camera to introduce this kind of errors that will affect the quality of the stitching and the final produced panorama. When the flight altitude is low though, or when there is a large area of water, mostly the sea, there are errors that can be fixed in the post-processing phase. The photoshoot from the DJI Mavic Pro 2 will result in a total of 26 images, around 20 megapixels each. That will include the area around the drone at the time of the shoot, but not the sky, of course. The sky will be filled in Photoshop at a later stage. Each image will have a significant overlap with its neighboring ones in order to allow the detection of the common points of the images in order to stitch them together. The final panorama will be around 26,000 pixels wide and 13,000 pixels height, more or less. The images of each panorama will be stored automatically in a separate folder. They will always have location from GPS along with other metadata that will help with the georeferencing of the panorama. The images will be downloaded from the drone and will be stored in a Lightroom catalog, from where some basic adjustments will be made. At the same time, some metadata enrichment will help with the process of better organizing the workflow. For example, when many panoramas are shot, marking with colors the folder of the ones that will be stitched and used is a helpful step. At any time, looking at the folder structure in Lightroom will make it easier to recognize which panoramas were used. Each image of the panoramas will be examined in Lightroom for the basic adjustments. The histogram is playing for me a crucial role for fast judging the photos and what to do in order to improve them. I will adjust the whites and blacks plus the highlights and shadows to increase the contrast, and at the same time I will adjust other sliders as well. After making adjustments in one photo, there is the ability to copy-paste the settings to the other photos of the panorama. After pasting the setting, there is the need to micro-adjust them, since the photos that are in the low part of the sphere tend to be darker, while the ones that are in the horizon and contain parts of the sky are overexposed. Especially the ones that cover the direction of the sun in a non-cloudy day might be burnt and lack contrast or details. Shooting at a time when the sun is high at the sky might make this phase easier and better if everything around the panorama is equally important for the photo. If not, and the sun is setting or rising, adjusting a more proper exposure or taking photos for HDR can be a solution for the high dynamic range of the panorama photo we shoot during this time of day. That is one very important reason why shooting RAW is crucial in order to maximize the dynamic range capabilities of the drone's 1-inch sensor. After the basic adjustment, I will export the images by using an export preset that will put the 16-bit TIFF files with no resizing to a subdirectory of the panorama folder. These TIFF files will be used in the PtGUI program to perform their stitching. I hardly ever do anything more in this program, runs fast and reliable, and if the photos are shot in a proper manner, the final stitched panorama will be good enough for the next steps. After the aligning of the images, I will export the 16-bit TIFF panorama in the same folder. I will even delete the 26 TIFF partial images at this point, since I will not need them anymore. The panorama will be missing the sky, since the part where the drone is cannot be photographed. This is a step that Photoshop shines. Before the introduction of AI generative fill, content-aware fill was filling this gap, and even before that, sky compositing and cloning was a time-consuming process for this step. Now, however, the process with the generative fill from Adobe's Firefly AI model is done much faster and most of the time better. There is one catch though, as all the current AI models, Firefly 2 is limited and will produce a 1024 pixel image and will stretch it to fill the selected area. So if we try to fill a 26,000 pixels wide missing sky, the result will need our attention. We could try to generate the sky in smaller areas gradually, but this would be time-consuming with doubtful results. Making the generation in one go and then making further edits with the other tools of Photoshop is the faster, and for me is producing acceptable results most of the time. If there is the need to run the generative fill for a smaller area, we can do so at a later stage. After doing the filling of the sky, since the panorama is a 360 one, we need to check the edges as well. The left edge of the photo must be seamless with the right edge of the photo. Since we cannot visualize this, in Photoshop we need to use the Offset tool from the Plugins menu to move the photo in the horizontal direction and expose the discontinuation of the areas that was the edges before the offset. This will give us the chance to fix it without the need to switch to another program. For me, since I use Offset frequently, I have it as a shortcut by pressing Ctrl plus Shift plus O at the same time. Another step is to check the photo for other things to improve, like discontinuation of details, horizon inconsistencies, and so on, but this may be a subject for another video. One other step is color grading and contrast, and details enhancement in some areas of the photo or in the entire panorama. Yet another big subject that can be a subject of another video. In these two last steps, we need to always remember that this is a 360-180 panorama. If we perform a local edit in any of the edge of the photo, this will cause the opposite edge of the photo to pop out, and it won't blend seamlessly when viewed as a sphere in the virtual tour. We saw that with Offset we can fix this in the horizontal axis, but the top and bottom of the photo, the zenith and nadir as we also call them, need to be checked elsewhere. This will be done in another software, the Pano2 VR, that is also used for this particular virtual tour development. Importing the 360-180 equi rectangular panorama in the Pano2 VR software will cause it to recognize it as a spherical panorama and project it in its main window in a way to help us manipulate it further. The first step will be to recognize areas that need to be addressed and fix them. One obvious area is the top of the image, where the generation of the sky occurred in Photoshop and most of the time will appear as a star-shaped inconsistent area that does not blend well. To fix any area, we can create patches in Pano2 VR to fix them in Photoshop. Any patches will be stitched automatically on the panorama and saved in a separate folder where the panorama is saved. In this way, we can easily fix the sky or any other part of the photo, or we can composite other details, objects, and so on in the panorama in order to be permanent if we want to. In this way, we can add flying birds, blur or delete properties. We do not want to be visible in the panorama and so on. We can have as many patches as we want. After this stage, we are ready with the panorama, and I am exporting as a JPG 8-bit final image with all the patches baked in this final output. This is done to save space, since keeping a 16-bit layered TIFF is consuming a lot of hard disk space. The output folder of the image is where the virtual tour software, Pano2 VR in this case, will check to find it each time we open a saved project that contains it. Pano2 VR is a great program for building an outdoor virtual tour with GPS-enabled panoramas, since it has a lot of tools and methods that will recognize the location of the panoramas to help the user maintain and connect them via hotspots or by using a map. There is a great degree of flexibility, but it is not an easy piece of software, and the learning curve is quite steep. For the purpose of this video, I will just mention that I will add the 3 panoramas of this small virtual tour. I will connect them in order to transition from one place to another. And I will add some hotspots in each of these 3 panoramas that will contain toponyms, visible settlements, and visible peaks that can be seen from each of the locations. At the same time, I will add another type of hotspot that, if clicked, will open another virtual tour in an info window in order for the users to open them in this way. Adding these hotspots is done in the main Pano2 VR window, but for building the click behavior and the appearance of the virtual tour, we need to do it to a Pano2 VR skin. There are a handful of ready skins that we can use and start adjusting to. We need to customize the skin in a separate window from where we can set the types, appearances, and the behavior of elements like the hotspots, the menus, the buttons, etc. From here we can personalize the skin and extend the ways that the users interact with our virtual tour. However, for this tour, I will just add some extra hotspot types that will help me to distinguish the settlements from the peaks and the toponyms. Each type of the hotspots can be selected from the main window in order to symbolize it accordingly. And this is the final result of the virtual tour, at least at the moment.